Why do people want to be entrepreneurs? Welcome back. Now, in this episode, we're going to talk about why do people want to be entrepreneurs. Now, my name is Ted Thomas. I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years. I run my business from a small office in my home. Now, just because it's a small office doesn't mean that it has to have small revenue. So you can make as much money as you want, and you can do it from a small office. So why do people become entrepreneurs? Well, biggest reason is, number one, they want to be rich. At least that's what they tell me. Or number two, they want to be famous. So let's see if we can help you out a little bit, but it's not going to be like life on YouTube where everything's going to work out perfectly. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it as I go along. So number one priority for entrepreneurs is don't quit your job, okay? Why do I say that? Because I don't want you to run out of money. All right. Number two rule for entrepreneurs is read rule number one or listen to rule number one all over again. I understand what your priorities are. You want to be rich, you want to be famous. Okay, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I started out 30 years ago, and I can tell you I've got some different opinions, but I'll show you how you can become wealthy as an entrepreneur. All right, so I said don't quit your job. I mean that. Rule number two is the same thing. Don't quit your job. Now, I realize you're pretty excited that you want to get going. You already know all the answers, and you're a smart cookie. Well, just don't quit your job and make sure that you're going to have enough money to keep going. All right, now, dozens of newcomers get started, and they get started because they're so darn excited. Try to slow yourself down. Yes, you want to be an entrepreneur. I get it. Yes, you want to be rich. I want you to have that vision. Keep it in the back of your mind. But the challenge is people run out of money, and there's a lot of failure in this business because people are going to run out of their money. So you don't want that to happen to you, okay? Now, Small Business Administration was created by the government, by the Congress, to help small business. In other words, to make loans and to give them advice. And their advice is sometimes kind of shocking. As a matter of fact, research will show that the Small Business Administration will tell you that 80% of all startup businesses will fail in the first 5 years. So that's an 80% failure rate in the first 5 years. Now, the 20% that survive, they'll also have an 80% failure rate in the subsequent 5 years. So that's a 96% failure rate. Well, forget that. You want to succeed, you will succeed, especially if you have a positive attitude. But the point is, you better make sure that you keep your job, and you better make sure that you've got enough reserves to take care of you and your family and, of course, that business. So making sure you have reserves is really, really important. All right, so let's talk about this business a little bit. I don't like to sugarcoat it. I like to tell you that it's going to be a lot of work. You have to be determined, and you have to be pig-headed, stubborn, determined if you're going to really be successful in business. So let's take a step backwards, and let's talk a little bit about this quitting your job. If you quit your job and you don't have money, you're really exposing yourself to a lot of risk that you don't need to expose. So try to keep your job as long as you can. Try to keep that money and make sure that you've got enough reserves. Now, I'll tell you, a few years ago, I was presenting at a 3-day event, and I was in Bangkok, Thailand. And when I finished that event, I boarded a jet, and I flew up to the border of China. In the border of China, there's a small town called Chiang Mai. And I went to Chiang Mai for a simple reason. I couldn't get anybody else to ever go with me, so I went by myself. And I got there because there's a sanctuary for Bengal tigers. Now, Bengal tigers are pretty darn amazing. So this huge sanctuary where I could go in and I could sit down, and they would put a baby tiger in my lap, weighed 45 pounds. Imagine this little kitten of a Bengal tiger, 45 pounds. Now, a large one weighs 750 pounds. Well, folks, I didn't know the feeling of terror until I was closed inside a cage with a Bengal tiger and a 14-year-old boy. And he had a little stick in his hand that was that big. But that little boy had slept with that tiger since the day the tiger was born. And when he touched that tiger and gave it a command, the tiger did what it was told. It was just amazing to me. Here I was in a cage with a 750-pound tiger. Was I scared? Yes, I was scared. The head on the tiger was about 18 inches wide, and the teeth were 6 to 8 inches long. Folks, you don't want to meet the tiger when you don't have any money. You want to make sure that you have money. The tiger is a hell of a representative of what can happen in your life. You don't want to meet that tiger because you didn't have money and you ran out of money and you went bankrupt. So this episode is all about entrepreneurs, okay? I'm an entrepreneur myself. I can tell you, I'm not going to sugarcoat it to anybody. I just tell you, you want to be one. Why do you want to be one? Is it because you can't get along in a job? You want to do your own job? Is it because you only want to work in the middle of the night? Is it because you're a pain in the butt? I don't know why. I know why a lot of people they want to be rich and they want to be famous. Well, maybe you're not all those things to start with, but you can be if you want to do this. All right, so let's learn a little bit about entrepreneurial business. More than 30 years ago, I discovered a business that was right under my nose, but I overlooked it, and I kept overlooking it. Finally, I understood it, and when I finally understood it, I could see that the government, the county governments and the state governments were taking over tax defaulted properties were perfectly good properties. Now, some of them were used and abused, some of them were junk, and some of them were moving quality. These were properties that they wanted to sell, they wanted to get rid of. So how do they go about doing that? Well, they auction those properties off. They auction them off in all 3,000 counties. They start the auction at the back taxes. They'll sell these properties for 10, 20, 30 cents on the dollar. Now, they're assessed by the government at whatever the assessment, whatever the value is. However, they don't try to get the assessed value. They just want to get rid of the property. So this is happening in all 50 states in the United States. All 50 states and all 3,000 plus counties are selling these tax defaulted property. And all they want to do is sell them to the highest bidder. Now, sometimes they're vacant buildable lots, sometimes they're homes, sometimes they're small farms, sometimes they're small office buildings. They're all sold at auction to the highest bidder. Anybody can go to this auction. What a great place for entrepreneurs. If you understand anything about risk reward, if you can buy something for 30 cents on the dollar, that's going to take a lot of the risk out of the deal. So think about that. So the county treasurer will start the auction and anybody can attend. When the county treasurer starts the auction, they discount 60%, 70, even 80% discount to start with. If you could buy property with an 80% discount, how many would you buy? You'd buy as many as you could afford, right? All right, well, the counties are selling these properties. So let's take a $200,000 property. I didn't make that value, the tax assessor did. But the tax collector has a property that's in default. So they're going to sell that property. They might start the bidding at 10 cents on the dollar. All right, so here's a $200,000 property. They're going to start it at 10 cents on the dollar. Well, you're not going to be the only savvy person that's going to show up. Other people are going to show up. So what if the bidding starts at 10 cents, goes to 20 cents, 30 cents? Well, let's say that property, which is valued at $200,000, sells for $50,000 and you're the number one bidder. In other words, you're the highest bidder. So you spent $50,000 for a $250,000 property. Who wouldn't want that deal? Everybody would. You're getting a property for 25 cents on the dollar. This is happening in America every single day. Properties are selling for 25 cents on the dollar. Now, how would you sell it? Well, there's Craigslist. There's the multiple listing system. There's eBay. There's Trulia, there's Zillow, there's signs on the property. You can sell it any way you want. You can put just signs on the house and sell it. You could hire a broker. You could hire the MLS system, whatever you want. All right, do you have to sell it for the $200,000? No. What if you decided to sell it for a lot less than that? That's what I teach people. I teach people, buy it low and sell it low. I call that my Walmart strategy. What does that mean? Walmart, Costco, Target, they buy it low, they try to sell it low, they make their money and they move a lot of product. Why couldn't you do the same thing? Buy it low, then you could sell it low and make a good profit. So what would you sell it for? Well, if it was worth $200,000 and you sold it for $99,000, do you suppose a lot of people would call you? Well, if you sold it for $99 and you paid $50, what a nice profit. You got a small investment and you got a huge profit. Now, my name is Ted Thomas, and right below me, if you're interested, there's an auction list. You can get a free auction list. Okay, now if you decide you're going to go to the auctions, before you go, you want to have checked out the property. Don't buy any property at an auction unless you've been there. Why do I say that? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First reason is, what if there was a hurricane? What if there was a flood? What if it was next to a chicken farm? What if it had been damaged by a windstorm? You don't want to be involved in any of those kind of deals. So you want to make sure that you've seen the property. In other words, boots on the ground. Second thing, big mistake people make is they don't know what they're going to sell it for. So you notice I took a $200,000 value and I sold it for $99,000. Most people would say, oh, Ted, you gave it away. Well, no, I didn't give it away. I just know I want to get my cash because I can go back to the auction and do it again. The point is, selling is usually the biggest challenge for people. I'm not going to have trouble selling a $200,000 property at $99,000. I know that. All right, so you always want to know what you're going to sell it for before you go to the auction. I'm Ted Thomas. I'll see you on the next video.